We all knew the left was losing their collective minds, but I think this is more proof and a nail in their coffin. Folks, this is insanity at its best. So good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Starkey Farmstead. My name is Samantha, and I'm fixing to break down not only some lies I recently heard about deportations in America that are going on, and you're going to want this information so you can be educated when you speak to your family members and friends about this situation. Also, we're going to talk about foreign students. Guys, don't turn this off. This is not what you think it's going to be.
Stacy, I have the belief that you may be in possession of drug.
Oh,
yes, I got the belief that
you
may be in possession of drugs.
Are you even an officer?
Stop being rude and just listen to him.
Notice the officer in the background has to walk away because he's laughing. This man does not even know what the citizen in Britain is asking him. They're having to translate for him. And in broken English, he's asking for a pat down, a search. Is this legal? Britain, what is going on in your country? I need your help. YouTube stole my money. And folks, it's because I speak truth so bluntly, so snarkily sometimes. And unfortunately, my husband is not happy. He basically said, Sam, if you can't figure out a way to make money on YouTube, you either have to cut down the types of videos you do, honey, or people are going to have to help you. And I can't blame him for saying that, because what does he do every day? Work really hard to pay our bills. So please look at the top of comments. You can open it up there 4 different ways, not just Venmo, not just PayPal, not just Cash App. You can actually send $1 in the mail if you prefer to do that. But if everybody would do that for me today, it would really help me explain to him why I love you guys so much and why I know that this is what the Lord has for me right now.
We hear about due process. It is your right, but it also protects not only the people, but the government from mistakes. That's just part of the basic due process, where whether you're arrested or the government wants to do something to you, you have process rights before they do it. And that brings us to a very real world example of how law and incompetence are troubling the Trump administration. They admit the mistake. They have now deported a Maryland father on one of those El Salvador flights in, quote, error. They got the wrong guy. He was here legally, and he's being treated like this and sent down there where he's now stuck.
There's a false rumor spreading around that in El Salvador, an innocent man was deported to a supermax security prison in El Salvador. But here's the full story. So Kilmar Abrego Garcia from El Salvador illegally snuck into the country in 2011. He was living in Maryland. In 2019, a judge granted him protection from deportation because he applied for asylum due to the risk of him being harmed by other gangs if he were returned to El Salvador. Fast forward to 2025, he was deported to a supermax security prison in El Salvador. The Trump administration is acknowledging that his deportation was an administrative error, but not because he's allegedly innocent, which Democrats are claiming. The Trump administration and the Department of Homeland Security have maintained the position that Kilmar Abrego Garcia was an MS-13 gang member with a long history of human trafficking. The administrative error was not listening to the protection order from deportation that was made in 2019. Not that this man was allegedly innocent, because he wasn't. The Trump administration has argued that regardless of this error, the court does not have jurisdiction to order his return to the U.S. because Abrego Garcia is now under El Salvadoran custody and jurisdiction, and he's a citizen of El Salvador. Also, frankly, this guy was a human trafficker, and I don't want him back in my country, and I don't think you should either.
Kilmar Abrego Garcia has legal status in the U.S. He actually originally came from El Salvador all the way back in 2011 and is protected under a court order that says he cannot be sent back for safety reasons.
And what were the safety reasons, folks? That he would be harmed by a rival gang. That's literally why the judge gave him protective status. Folks, he's El Salvadorian, okay? He got sent back to El Salvador. This is not a mistake. This is not a mistaken identity. This is not some poor legal migrant being scooped up off the streets on his way home from work and being sent to a prison he has no place to be in. Stop. The man was a human trafficker. Okay, he's like 29. Do the math. He's been doing this since he was like 13, folks. Do you really want that in America? Is your bleeding liberal heart so ridiculous that you're going to eat up what MSNBC had to say about it? Do your own research, people. It's not that hard.
The administration says they knew, and they deported him anyway. So this is just a giant failure.
I would beg to differ. I think this was a giant success. This is exactly what Americans voted Trump to do. Remove dangerous people and then start removing all illegal people.
It's not in the best interest of the United States to have them in our country. So yeah, I don't know how high that number is going to be, but you're going to see more people.
We have 1.1 million foreign students studying in the United States. Do you think it's truly an America first approach when U.S. universities that get billions in total from the federal taxpayer rely so heavily on foreign students, including foreign students from adversary countries like China?
I think it's a real problem, and it's something that we're certainly looking at, Laura. To your point, a lot of these foreign students, most of them pay full freight. And so sometimes what you have at an elite university, right, like a Columbia or a Harvard, you have a well-qualified middle-class American kid from the heartland who doesn't get a spot in these universities because some Chinese oligarch who's paying $100,000 a year takes up that spot. So it's not just bad for national security, it's bad for the American dream for a lot of kids who want to go to a nice university and can't because their spot was taken by a foreign student. It's certainly something we're looking at.
So there you have it. J.D. Vance, Vice President J.D. Vance, breaking down the issue with international students. Now, if you saw my video the other day, I told you guys there are over 1 million international students in this country right now. Let me tell you a story. My daughter goes to college out of state. She told me the other day she got a new roommate. It's a little Chinese girl. The little girl dropped all her stuff off in the dorm room and hasn't been back for weeks. What do you think she's doing? That's called jumping with your visa. All right? She got money to come here to go to school, brought her stuff to the dorm room, and has never returned. Now, my daughter did turn that in to the college because she was worried about human trafficking, right? But I personally believe this little girl just jumped. She got in the country and did what most of them do, which is run off, do what they want to do. Here's another thing international students do that people don't realize. Watch this. Banks are giving them student loans. FAFSA is giving them student loans backed by the federal government. And then they jump on the loans, leaving behind hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt that you, my friend, get to absorb. And something else I want you to notice are all these liberal left judges putting out retainers or basically saying you cannot remove this illegal from this state. Watch, I'll show you what I mean.
They came for the criminals, and I did not speak out because I was not a criminal. And then they came for the people exercising free speech. Rumeysa Ozturk is sitting in an ICE detention center in Louisiana, despite a court order stating she couldn't be moved out of the state of Massachusetts.
Let me explain to you why there's a court order saying she cannot be removed from the state of Massachusetts. See, the federal court system is set up in jurisdictions. Louisiana is in the 5th federal jurisdiction, okay? It's very, very conservative. Very conservative. And that is why they like to send these troubling criminals down to Alexandria, Louisiana, here. Because the judges over the 5th Circuit Court, federal court, are very conservative. And chances are we're going to deport if you come before the judge. That is why all these liberal Democrat judges up north are freaking out, saying, no, court order, you can't remove them from my state. Yeah, we're not falling for that anymore. You don't have the power, friend, to do that. Americans, watch this.
Student status is really discretionary by the U.S. government to allow a foreign student to come and obtain a U.S. education. It can be easily revoked, and there is no appeal process for a foreign student to try to get this revocation reversed. We've been seeing international students getting snatched up off the streets, getting picked up, or having documentation from the government sent to them that their status is being revoked. These people get processed in Louisiana, and this is because the ICE facility in Louisiana is physically located under the jurisdiction of the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals in Texas. The most conservative court going on right now. They are pro-Trump and anti-immigration. So if any type of appeal or stay process goes through, it will eventually be in front of the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, and they are most likely to side and rule with the government.
You know, America is not anti-immigrant. Just because we do not want illegal immigrants coming into this country, it does not mean that we don't want immigrants coming to this country. The left goes from one hard extreme to the other, but they never give you all the facts. They give you the emotions. The emotions. We're losing our ability, our First Amendment rights. Really? That was passing laws in court and federal laws saying we had to use your preferred pronouns. Sweetheart, that's freedom of speech. Having someone here as a guest in our country and them misbehaving or doing something that's anti-American and us removing them is not illegal, it's not unconstitutional, nor is it immoral.
Now, what everybody needs to understand is that when the airline was first launched, it was a startup with the name of Global X. It told investors that they would be flying VIPs around, sports figures, celebrities, debutantes, etc. And that's exactly what Layla thought that she was going to be doing. When they actually got on the plane, they were not even trained to deal with detainees. These flights are all regulated by the FAA, and they have to adhere to the strict guidelines, which means that if there's an emergency, you have to get people off the plane within 90 seconds. These people are shackled, wrist to fucking ankles.
Does anybody want to guess why they shackle people wrist to ankles? Because under President Biden, they tried to send some illegals back to their countries. What did they do? They destroyed the planes. They took the flight attendants hostage. They took the pilots hostage, folks. They don't want to go back. They don't behave. These are people that broke into the country illegally. They don't care about your laws. They don't care about your rules. Now, if you are being moved from state to state and you're in custody of the state, like a prisoner, you broke the law as an American citizen, guess what they do to you on flights? They cuff you from wrist to ankle. So if it's good enough for an American citizen, it's good enough for anyone.
We have never gotten a clear answer on what to do in an ICE air evacuation. They will not give us an answer. It's only a matter of time before a deportation ends in a disaster. They were instructed specifically not to talk to the detainees, don't feed them, and don't even make eye contact. But everybody's
That makes sense. They are in custody of the federal government of the United States. They're being treated as if they were criminals. Again, if it's good enough for a citizen of the United States, it is good enough for an illegal who broke into our country. Grow some skin, folks.
Say, well, these are gang members. These are criminals. Of course they have to be shackled. Well, that's exactly what Layla thought. She was worried that violence was going to break out at first, too. But then her fear soon turned to discomfort at how the detainees were so inhumanely treated. The guards refused to abide by FAA safety rules. If the flight attendants told the guards to sit down, sometimes they would report them to their supervisors, and the flight attendants would get in trouble for it. And remember when I told you that they're trained to get people off the plane within 90 seconds? Well, they were also told that if there is an emergency, don't worry about them. Just get up and leave and save yourself. If a fire occurs in the cabin, if we land on water, don't check on the immigrants. Just make sure that you and the guards and the people that work for the government get off. It was as if the detainees' lives were worthless.
You cannot have it both ways. Either stop complaining about the fact that inflation, crime, stop talking about how you can't afford college, how you can't afford housing, how you can't afford insurance, if you're going to be okay with 30 million extra people that have never paid into the system, default the system. You can't have it both ways. It doesn't make flipping sense. I love you guys so much. I'm actually waiting on my hay delivery. Had to take $200 out of the Venmo account that I've been saving to go see Samuel to get the hay brought in, because I've got to cover the garden area. We have a class April 26th, and I also have to be able to get food growing. I'm not going to be able to use my well at all this year. It is on the verge of a massive heart attack. Replacement is $12,000. Now, if YouTube wouldn't have stole my money, I could have made that in 2 months. But because I can't control my opinions, YouTube just takes the money. So like I said, if you guys would please consider sending $1. If all of you did, I could replace the well, bring the hay in, and go see Samuel. Woo! Come on, Jesus. I love you guys. Have a blessed day.